Hi there. Welcome to Conversations for Yoga Teachers. I'm your host, Karen Fabian, the founder of Bare Bones Yoga. If you're a yoga teacher who wants to feel more confident when you teach, sharing clear cues, moving freely and confidently around the room, and creating solid, amazing sequences, you are in the right place. Each week, I share practical tools and frameworks and anatomy insights to help you teach in a way that feels natural and authentic. Some episodes feature guests and some are solo teachings from me. Now, if you want more support, all you need to do is check the link in my Instagram or TikTok bio for freebies and my top programs, the Yoga Teacher Confidence Club and the Yoga Anatomy Accelerator. On both platforms, you'll find me at Bare Bones Yoga. Ready? Let's dive in. Hi there. Welcome to Conversations for Yoga Teachers. I am your host, Karen Fabian, and this is episode 351. I'm recording this intro on May 22nd, 2025, and this episode will go live on, oh boy, what date? May 26th, which here in the US is Memorial Day for what it's worth. So I feel like it's been a while since I've been on an episode with you just myself because I have had so many amazing guests on the show, and I'm super grateful for that. And at the same time, I really love doing the solo episodes. So let me just get you caught up on a couple of things. Number one, there are a lot of reels that I'm putting on my Instagram page that you might be interested in. So I know we're here on the podcast and now I'm directing you to Instagram, but I want to just make sure that you're aware that my Instagram every day has Instagram lives that I do, Instagram reels that I post. So that is a really good way to get support as a yoga teacher and to just hear little snippets of information on cueing, sequencing, anatomy, and mindset. The next thing I wanted to tell you about is I just wrapped up the first group of teachers who enrolled in the Yoga Anatomy Accelerator. And the reason I've been talking about this so much on all the episodes since I launched this program a month ago is because the concept is something that yoga teachers have been asking me for a while, which is I want to learn anatomy so that I can feel more confident teaching my classes, but I don't have 90 days to learn it. And my one-on-one program is a 90-day program. So about a month and a half ago, I created an accelerator program, just 4 sessions focusing on just the essentials, supplemented by a handful of targeted lessons in video format. And I just finished today the first group of 6 teachers who went through that program. They're my beta group, my first group, and the feedback was so great. I have one particular teacher who gave it a 5 out of 5 across many different parameters, including that she would highly recommend it to any yoga teacher who wants to feel more confident teaching their classes. She loved the format, it fit in really easy with her schedule. And while that part is more personal, the content can be consumed anyway. So even if you can't make it to the live trainings, you can watch the replays. So this works for anybody with respect to your schedule, but more importantly, it's going to help you shift from where you are now to where you want to be. If where you want to be as a teacher is feeling more confident. So if this is for you, send me a DM on Instagram or an email and just say, I want the podcast offer to enroll in the accelerator program. And I will send you a coupon code to get $50 off, which will make your total cost of the program just $347, which is the most affordable package I've ever offered yoga teachers for the value that you will get out of this program. So that's that piece. With that, I want to give you an idea of what you're going to learn, what you're going to gain by listening to this episode. This episode is actually a recording of the audio from a live workshop I did yesterday, May 21st, 2025. And it was such a great workshop from the point of view of the interaction I had at the end with some teachers and really just the format that I used to talk about building your confidence as a teacher. I play oftentimes with presenting that topic in different ways. And this particular format where I talk about where you'll learn about cueing strategy, signature sequencing, the step-by-step to learning anatomy, and how to build a confident mindset. That four-pillar approach to confident yoga teaching is really my clearest way yet to talk to you about this topic. And in fact, at the end, one of the people at the workshop said, "This was so easy to understand." And I just was jumping for joy because, yes, this is exactly what we're going for. We're not going for making things more complicated. Matter of fact, just today I got an email from a new yoga teacher, and in her head, she's thinking she's going to need to practice her sequence 50 times, and she's looking ahead at the next couple of days before she teaches as I have to memorize the sequence. And that is what most yoga teachers think, but there's such an easier way. And that's what I talk about in this workshop. So, what you're going to hear is the audio for the workshop. Now, I understand that that's not as great as being there, but the content is so on point that even just listening to the audio and not seeing me write on the whiteboard is, I mean, I wouldn't say it's 100% as good, but it's pretty darn close. So that's what you're going to hear. The audio of a workshop I did yesterday on how to build your confidence as a yoga teacher. And I want you to really listen for the four key pillars and how we talk about each one, and for each one, how you get the step-by-step for cueing, signature sequencing, step-by-step to learn anatomy, and how to build a confident mindset. And that's it. That's what we're going to focus on. We're going to hop over to that audio of the workshop right now. And if you have any questions, just send me a DM on Instagram or send me an email. And let's go over to that audio now so you can listen to that workshop. Here we go. Hi there. This is the workshop on how to build your confidence as a yoga teacher, and I've just hopped on and I'm going to start letting folks in. So if you're watching the replay, here we go. All right, hi guys. We're going to get started in about a minute. Let me just get some of you all in here and then we'll get going. So just give us about, maybe like a minute and then we'll start. It's nice to see you guys. I recognize your names from our little conversations on social media, or some of you are in different programs I have. So welcome, welcome. You might want something to write with for this, just to take some notes. If you do want the replay after, I can definitely send that. So just send me an email or a DM on Instagram and I will send that over. So I'm just going to give it about another 30 seconds and then we are going to start. And one other thing I'll just say is we're going to keep this to 30 minutes. And if you have any questions, just hold them till the end, and then you can just unmute yourself and ask away. I always like these things to be sort of conversational, not just me talking. So hopefully as you're watching, you'll be inspired to ask something, and, I'm sure that will benefit other people here as well. All right, so I'm just going to give it like another 10 seconds and then we're going to start. Now, one thing to just check, I set up the meeting so that everybody is on mute when you log in. So definitely sounds like that. I can't hear any background noise, but just FYI, if you feel like you hit something and we can hear you, maybe just reset. But it looks good. Doesn't look like anybody is off mute. Okay. All right, let's start. If other folks come, I'm just going to hop up here to the computer just to let them in. All right, so just to let you know, I'm going to hop back a little bit. We're going to do this like a TED Talk, so I'm not going to be sitting here right in front of you. All right, now, the other thing I'll just say from a semantic standpoint is it doesn't really matter if you can't see exactly what I'm writing. It's really just designed to kind of keep the conversation interactive. So don't worry if you can't see it exactly. If you do want to really be sure you see what's on the whiteboard, just ask for the replay, and that's a good way to get it as well. Okay, so let's start. I'm gonna ask you just a basic question, and I want you to just think about what's the first thing that pops into your mind. So here's the question. Ready? Where are you now, and where do you want to be as a yoga teacher? I mean, obviously, this whole conversation is around teaching yoga. So, where are you now, and where do you want to be? And I want you to think about, even if we did a little visualization here and you closed your eyes and you imagine yourself teaching in a way that just really resonates with you, that just really makes you excited to teach and just really gets you sort of anticipating going into your next class. What does that actually look like? What does it look like? What does it sound like? What are you doing? What is that? And that's going to be the place we start. Because the whole conversation we're going to have today, even as it gets a little bit more technical, a little bit more about what we're doing as teachers, make no mistake about it. This entire conversation is about that. Yes, we're going to talk about cueing. Yes, we're going to talk about sequencing. But again, I want you to keep in mind, what is your vision for how you want to show up as a teacher? This is the kind of thing where if you came to this workshop and you were expecting like all these teaching techniques and that was it, that's not what this is about, because that's not how we transform as teachers. How we transform is we imagine in our head, what kind of teacher do I want to be? And can I actually define that on my own? Separate from what they told me in teacher training, separate from what I see on Instagram, separate from what I might experience when I go to take somebody else's class. What do I want? How do I want to show up as a yoga teacher? All of you here would not have paid money and spent time going to teacher training just for the heck of it. You did it because something inspired you to take a 200-hour teacher training and to be a yoga teacher. And then oftentimes for teachers, what happens is they get out there and they start teaching. And after a few months of frustration and confusion, they get further and further away from why they started teaching in the first place. And so a big part of this conversation we're going to have today is to bring you back to that. Because if you're not operating from that place, even if right now things are not going well or you're frustrated, and I'll talk about that a little more in a second, when you have that other vision, sort of like your true north, and you have a path for how you're going to get there, that's where you start to build momentum. And once you start to build momentum, I've seen it with dozens of yoga teachers I've worked with in my program. Once you start to build momentum, you're unstoppable, because now you're on a path. Now you're making progress. Now you're feeling good. Now you're experimenting with different things in your classes and getting, internal positive feedback, not external. I'm not talking about, oh, that was a good class. I'm talking about internal. Your inner being is giving you positive feedback. That is a large part of feeling confident as a yoga teacher. It's not about what they say. We can't control how our students think about us or feel after our classes. We can't control that. But for many yoga teachers, that's what they're tying their self-worth to. Did they like it? Did they stay? Did they do everything? Did I feel like they were doing it well? If not, then I feel badly about how I am as a teacher. So this is not about that, because that's not where your confidence comes from. So now that we've got, hopefully most of the people on, I want to just give you kind of a visual here. So remember what we said. Let's say this is you here, right? And this is you here. So this is you now, right? So where are you now? And think about, this is an arrow, can't see that. And where do you want to be? So you're traveling, okay? So I'm just going to share with you, and obviously you're not talking back, but you can certainly at the end, we'll leave some time for questions. But I want you to see if the things that I write over here resonate with you. Because a lot of the things that I hear from teachers in terms of where am I right now? Things like confused, unsure, spending an hour or more every week prepping for my classes, going into my classes and feeling the compulsion to practice with them because otherwise I don't know what comes next in my sequence, right? This is all where we are right now. Worrying that I'm going to forget my place in the sequence, worrying that my sequence isn't good enough, especially when I go and take somebody else's class and I see the kinds of things they're doing. Now I feel like I have to go home and tweak the sequence I have. Nervous, doubting yourself. But where you want to be, and again, I can't read your mind, and I'd love to know at the end, you can certainly open up and share, but the kinds of things I hear from teachers about the kind of teacher they want to be, they want to feel confident. They want to feel clear. They want to feel calm when they're teaching their classes, focused, present. These are a lot of the words. I don't make this stuff up on my own. I've been working with teachers for years, and I always listen to what they say. It's actually fascinating to me. As a teacher, I've been teaching 22 years, having been raised in this industry at a very different time when there weren't that many outside influences. I mean, there wasn't even Facebook or Instagram in the first many number of years that I was teaching. So teachers today have it a little harder. There's so much more out there to influence you. And what influencing usually does is make a person doubt themselves. Doesn't usually buoy you up and make you feel more confident, because then what happens is you're comparing yourself to somebody else. And the way the mind works is that when we compare ourselves to somebody else, it's usually because we're triggered that we're not good enough. I hear this sort of thing from dozens of teachers. I'm going to classes of teachers in the studio I work in, and I feel awful when I'm done taking their class because I feel like I'm not doing all the things that they're doing. And should I be doing those things? So if this sort of transformation, change, shift is appealing to you, then stick around, because that's exactly what we're going to be talking about. How do I move from confused and unsure and nervous and doubting myself to clear and confident and present and feeling like I know what the heck I'm doing? Okay, so that's the premise of this conversation. And don't worry, if you came here for teaching techniques, we're going to get into that. But we have to start from the bigger picture. Otherwise, there's no context for what we're talking about. So the real question is, and you're probably asking yourself, well, how do I actually get from here to here? So let's talk about it. If this is you now, right, that's just a stick figure if you can't see, and this is where you want to be, you might think from here to here is 200 hours, 300 hours, 500 hours, 1,000 hours, 10 years. And the reason you probably think that is because that's the whole narrative in the yoga industry. It takes a long time to be a good yoga teacher. It takes a long time. It's a journey. And that's just stuff that people say. And so what does that do? And that's why I framed this workshop for new yoga teachers, because if you feel like that, it's not through any fault of your own. It's because of all the messaging out there that this is a long time and it's going to take a long time. It doesn't take a long time. It takes learning the things you need to know to get from here to here, and learning it in a way that's step by step, so you don't get confused, so you don't get waylaid to the next shiny object, so you know exactly how to get from here to here. So I'm going to tell you what's in between. And again, it doesn't matter if you can't see exactly. I'm going to talk you through it. So don't worry if you can't see the whiteboard. The reason, just FYI, the reason I do the whiteboard is because if I go on one more Zoom presentation and somebody throws up slides, I'm going to just quit. I do this because I want it to be like we're in the room together. If I just throw up slides, you're going to disengage. If I stand up here and keep talking in an animated way, I have a better shot of keeping you engaged. So that's why I use the whiteboard. Doesn't even matter if you can't see it. So here's your 4 steps. And I want you to think about this from the perspective of what we talked about a second ago. where you are now and where you want to be. And you probably think, and you'd be justified in thinking this, there's like 1,000 things. How can there only be 4 things? Like there's 1,000 things that yoga teachers need to know. Well, you may have your whole life to learn everything, but wouldn't it be nice to know exactly where you need to start? So here's what we're talking about. Number 1 is a strategy for your cues. And if you're taking notes, that's the first thing you want to write. A cues strategy. Number 2 is a signature sequence. Signature sequence. And I'm going to go into each one a little bit. Number 3 is to understand the key aspects of anatomy. And I know already you're worried because you're thinking, but anatomy is hard to learn. I didn't learn anatomy well in my 200-hour teacher training. I can get by without knowing anatomy, can I? Can I just be saying cues? And the answer to that is no. But the answer to the other problem is you can learn anatomy. It's just that nobody's taught it to you in an easy step-by-step way. And that's what I do, and that's what I can do to help you. So I want you to disengage from any belief that you have that you can't learn it. Half the reason why most yoga teachers don't learn anatomy is because there's like a gazillion ways yoga anatomy is taught to teachers all over the world. But when you have a proven method, which is how I teach anatomy, I've been teaching anatomy for over 20 years. I've been using a proven method and tweaking it along the way, and it gets teachers results. And most people aren't learning from someone who has a proven method. So that's what makes it different, this part. The last thing is a confident mindset. And the reason I added this last piece is because I know you're here because you want to feel more confident. You wouldn't be here if you didn't, because that's the title of this workshop, How to Be More Confident as a Yoga Teacher. But the question is, how do you be more confident? How can you feel more confident? And the answer to that resides in the part of teaching yoga that has to do with what's going on in your head. But people don't get trained on this. Nobody's going to a 200, 300, or 500-hour training and learning about how the mind works, beliefs that we have, how to bust through limiting beliefs. But that's a large part of what's in this part. But if we don't learn how to do that, then we're just sort of a victim to all the negative thoughts that we have in our head when we go in and teach our yoga classes. And believe me, if there's one thing I've learned after years of working with teachers, is that there's something very triggering about teaching yoga. It's very different from teaching other forms of movement. There's something about teaching yoga that's been around for 5,000 plus years, that has a historical framework, that has a philosophical framework, that has an anatomical underpinning, that leads people to believe that I'm not good enough to be teaching this. I can't possibly know enough. But yet I have to walk into this room and lead this group of people through this practice. How am I going to possibly do that? So if you have these sorts of thoughts, know that there's something baked in to teaching yoga that tends to bring this stuff up. But that's why a large part of what I talk to teachers about when I work with them in my program is this part. But most people never get any support on that. All right, so let's get into each one of these things for about 2 minutes. I'll give you a little preview of what each thing has. So the first thing we talked about in our how do I get from here to here is cues. And I'm going to tell you something you probably haven't heard before. And this is also something that you're probably going to want to write down. There are 4 types of cues. 4 types of cues. You could probably make the case for a couple of more, but generally speaking, doesn't matter what kind of yoga you're teaching, there are 4 types of cues: action, alignment, anatomy, and somatic. Okay, so right out of the gate, part of being a confident teacher is having a strategy for how I'm going to go into the class and talk to them. And the strategy needs to be something that allows me to feel like myself, that allows me to teach from what I know, versus going in with my notes, going in with a script, going in with the script in my head that they told me to say in teacher training. That is a disconnected experience that doesn't allow me to feel confident. So when I go in to teach my yoga class, if I want to feel confident, I'm going to go in with a cueing strategy, an approach to cueing. How am I going to organize all the stuff in my head so that when I speak it, it's clear? Because if my cues aren't clear, they don't know what to do. Okay? So for right now, right, we don't have a lot of time in this 30-minute workshop, but for right now, here's a strategy you can use today, like in your next yoga class. Teach your class from action. Teach your class from action. Short action phrases that tell them what to do. Any of you in this workshop right now, doesn't matter how much experience you have teaching yoga, doesn't matter how long ago you took your 200-hour, or maybe you just graduated a week ago and your head is full because you feel like, oh man, there was so much information in that training. This is a way to organize your thoughts. Think of this, I call it a cueing framework. Think of this as almost like a filter. You have all the stuff you know from your training and whatever experience you have to date, and then you have this filter. Before the words come out of your mouth, you're filtering what you know through an action cues framework. So let me give you an example. If I was teaching all of you, let's say you came and this was an online yoga class, and I wanted to teach you a sun salutation. I could say, bring your feet together, sweep your arms up, bend your knees and forward fold, lift halfway up, place your hands on the mat, step your feet back, lower halfway down, point your toes, straighten your arms, roll over your toes to downward facing dog, take 3 breaths. It was nothing for me to say that. And you notice I didn't have to move an arm, I didn't have to move a leg, I didn't have to move my body, which allows me to keep looking at you. And if you were in my yoga class and I was doing the walk and talk, I could see you. So I could see how my cues are landing on you. So action cues framework, an action cues framework gives you a much better opportunity to do the walk and talk. And we don't have time to talk about that extensively, but know that there are really 2 models out there these days in yoga. There's the walk and talk, and there's the practice with me approach. And then there's a hybrid. And I am not here to say that one is better than the other or one is right or wrong, because that kind of binary thing doesn't exist in yoga. You might think it does, and especially as a newer teacher, we want somebody to tell us, what should I be doing? But guess what? When you start to experiment in your classes in service to you finding what works for you, that is when you are going to start really stepping into your confidence. So again, if you're watching this and right now you are primarily practicing with your class, that's okay. But at the very beginning, when I asked you, where are you now and where do you want to be? If part of what you dream of being is the kind of yoga teacher who can just walk in the room and just teach their class, who doesn't need to put a mat down, then you want to learn how to hone your cueing so that you can do that walking around. So you don't have to depend on your own practice to know what to say. Okay, so that's the cueing part. Obviously, if you work with me in my program, I can tell you the whole rest of the story, but that's enough to get you started. All right, so the next thing is a signature sequence. A signature sequence. A signature sequence is just what it sounds like. It's a sequence that you love, that reflects what you love to teach, not what they told you to teach in teacher training, not that that was bad or wrong, but now you're out there teaching. You're starting to develop your own identity as your teacher, as a teacher. Remember at the beginning, where are you now? Where do you want to be? when you think about that question, are you actually teaching a sequence that reflects who you want to show up as a teacher? Because if you're like a lot of people that I talk to, the answer to that is no. You might be teaching what you think they want, what you think you have to teach, what you see other people teaching. So the idea of a signature sequence is, number one, it's full of stuff you love. And number two, it's something you're willing to experiment with over and over and over again in service to you getting to know it really well. And I know some of you out there are going to say, oh my God, I can't teach the same sequence week to week. My students are going to get bored. That, my friend, is just a belief. That is not a fact. And when we talked about mindset 5 minutes ago, part of developing a confident mindset is having agency over what you're doing, not doing things out of a belief that you want somebody else to like it. Because the result of that is maybe what a lot of you are experiencing. Every Sunday night, you spend 3 hours at the dining room table writing out a new sequence for the week, only to go into the class and have to practice it with them. Understandably so, because it's a brand new sequence and you don't know it. So imagine instead you have a signature sequence you know so well that you don't have to worry about it. Doesn't mean you teach it forever, but it is something that allows you to develop your confidence through the skill of teaching the class. Too many teachers make it way too hard on themselves by changing the sequence every week. And there's absolutely no reason you have to do that. So here's literally in 3 steps. Obviously, this is a longer conversation, but we don't have time. If we work together in my program, I'll show you the longer version. But here's the 3 steps to creating a sequence. Step number 1. What's the point of the sequence? What is the objective? That's why I wrote an O. What is the objective? If one of your students came up to you before class and said, hey, what are we going to do today? What would you say? If you were in my class, I would say we're gonna do yoga for an hour. It's going to be a class full of just functional movement. We're going to do some strengthening, we're going to do some stretching, we're going to do some balancing, and it's good for all levels of yoga students. That would be what I would say. That is what I do when I teach my classes. Now there's another level of explanation I could give, but that's a basic explanation. So what would you say? What's the objective of, think of one sequence you've taught a number of times. What's the point of that sequence? What would you say to someone who asked? So step number 2 is, what are the sections of the sequence? Now that you have the objective, and let's imagine you're doing this from square one. Once you have the objective of the sequence, what are the sections of that? So in my case, I've got sun salutations, I've got balances, I've got back bends, I've got twists. So what are yours? What are the sections of your sequence? And then in each section are the actual poses. So for instance, the balancing section, I might have dancers, eagle, and tree. So that's my balancing section. So you could literally do this in 10 minutes. And remember, the premise here, the overarching premise, is that you're building this based on what you know. There are so many options out there for sequencing. I know you have the books, I know you watch the videos, I know you scroll through Instagram, but you don't need to do that. It only makes it harder. When you build it from what you know and love, your confidence grows because you're starting from what you know, not what somebody else is doing. So all of you on this call right now, you can do this. You probably already have a sequence that meets this format. So the only thing left is to claim it. To claim it as your signature. Just like your signature on a piece of paper, this becomes what you get known for. It's branding. It's how students develop connection with you. It's what they know. Oh, when I go to Carol's class, I'm going to get XYZ. And again, for the naysayers out there, it doesn't mean forever. Most of the time when I present this approach, people will say, well, how long do I have to do that? Well, I don't know. Until you start to feel like you're teaching the way you want. If you were a Broadway performer and every Monday you went in and the stagehand gave you a brand new script to learn for the play, how do you think you would do? You probably wouldn't do really well. But that's exactly what teachers are doing when they change their sequence every week. So that is the sequencing part. So we got one more section to talk about that we talked about earlier on, or two more on our path to confident teaching. So the next thing is anatomy. So I know what you're going to say. Oh, anatomy is so hard to learn. My brain is full. I learned so much. Couldn't remember it. And again, the only reason that's your experience is simply because it wasn't taught to you in a systematic, step-by-step way with proven results. Matter of fact, most of the time that I get hired to teach anatomy in other people's 200-hour teacher trainings is because the person running the training by their own admission doesn't understand anatomy. And they know I love it, and so they hire me to do it. But think about all the people out there that don't hire an expert and just try to do it. You're the person that gets that kind of training. And that's not bad, or I'm not blaming, it's just the way things are. So let me show you the easy step-by-step blueprint to learn anatomy. And I want you to think about this as just like a recipe. If you were gonna make your first souffle and you went on Google and said, give me a souffle recipe, and you just followed the steps. This is the exact same thing. So in this blueprint, I call it the Yoga Anatomy Blueprint, there are 10 steps. And the magic of this is that when you learn step 1, you use it in step 2. When you learn step 2, you use it in step 3. So they must be done in order. And the fact that they're done in order makes it so easy to do, because unlike what you're probably doing now, which is trying to learn anatomy on your own as an adjunct to whatever you're learned in your teacher training, you're out there on your own, you're buying books, you're going through courses, and they're all over the place. The step-by-step reflects there's things you need to know before other things. And I know y'all have the books where you open them up and there's poses with arrows pointing to the muscles. I know y'all have those books. I have those books too. But if you don't know how muscles work, those books do not help you. If you don't understand key joints in the body and how they're set up, those books don't help you. It's like going to a movie in the beginning, in the middle of the movie instead of the beginning. So here's the beginning. Step number 1 is, and you might want to write this down too. Step number 1 is understanding what anatomical position is. You might not have heard that as a term, but it is the home base of shapes. And it is the position from which joint movements or anatomical movements are described. So all of you out there watching right now who are saying things like reach your arms up to the sky, or step your leg back, or bring your feet together, do you actually know what those anatomical movements are? Because if you don't, then I'm going to call you out a little bit. Because now you're not speaking from what you know, you're just repeating stuff. But this is the experience of most yoga teachers, because if they don't learn this, then that's all you can do. Now, again, remember when we talked about cues a second ago? Cueing from action, right? That's what we said is a strategy. Cueing from action. Cueing from action is a fantastic, powerful way to teach your classes while you're learning anatomy. So give yourself some compassion and use that as a strategy. And then I'll tell you how you can enroll in my program at the end of this, and we can get this fixed and squared away for you. So anatomical movements. Number 3 is key bones. Not every bone in the body, there's 206, but the important ones you need to know for yoga. Step 4 is key joints. Not every joint in the body. I don't really get too much into the hands and feet. It will come up. When it comes up, you'll learn it. But there's definitely stuff you need to know about the joints in the body that come up a lot in the movements we do. The things that you probably already have questions about: shoulders, hips, ankles, knees. It's fine. Step number 5 is how muscles work. How muscles work. You know, all those classes where you're saying stuff like stretch, engage, contract? What are you talking about? What does that mean? If somebody asked you in your class, why are you saying engage the glutes? What would you say? See, this brings up an essential principle of building your confidence as a teacher. And it's when you speak from what you know, your confidence grows. When you speak from what you know, your confidence grows. If you're not speaking from what you know, you're repeating. And again, that is a place to start. It's basically the experience of every new yoga teacher. And at some point, in service to what we're here talking about, moving you from one place to another in your development, you begin to start knowing so that you can start speaking from what you know. And guess what? When you do that, you are going to feel so much more confident. All right, so we did 5. We went through 5. So number 6 is, I know what you've been waiting for, which is the muscles. Everybody wants to know the muscles. So now that you've learned how muscles work, now we can get into the key muscles in the body. There are about 600 muscles in the body. It would take you a long time to learn them all. But when I teach in my program, I teach about probably about 80. About 80 muscles. Right? Some of them you may already know. Some of them you may remember from your teacher training. Some of them you may have Googled when somebody asked you a question in class. So just to give you an idea of like volume. So I want you to think about step 1 through 6 as the knowledge. Because remember, it's not just about the knowledge. If you want to be a confident yoga teacher, you have to know how to actually use this. And the using of the knowledge is the application of it to teaching. So the application to teaching comes in 7, 8, 9, and 10. So 7 is muscles in poses. This is where most teachers want to start. Oh, can we break down Warrior 1? You know, all my videos I do that are breaking down poses, they always get a lot of hits because that's the stuff that people want to know. But you can't know this, my friend, until you know this and this. This won't make sense. And then after muscles and poses, now we get to the rubber meeting the road. How do I apply anatomy to cues? How do I apply anatomy to sequences? And then what is fascia and myofascial release? And that's it. 1 through 10. That's your blueprint. I teach this in about 4 sessions, just to give you an idea. I'll tell you more about that program in a minute. Okay, so the last thing, as we're wrapping up here, sort of the last 5 minutes of this workshop. The last thing, if you remember, if you were here from the beginning, and even if you weren't, that's okay, because I'm going to tell you what it is confident mindset. What the heck is a confident mindset as a yoga teacher? What allows yoga teachers to go into the room and feel confident and feel like they deserve to be there, feel like they're qualified enough, feel like they're expert enough, feel calm, centered, clear, confident? What is it? Well, in part, it's the technical stuff we talked about in the first 20 minutes of this conversation. But there's another part of it, and it's what's going on in your head. And I know that there's a lot, I would guess there's probably a lot of stuff going on in your head when you're teaching. And so a large part of a confident mindset is a little bit of what I talked about before. This willingness to go into your classes and experiment with different things in service to you finding what works best for you. I found in years of working with yoga teachers that the key to being confident has very little to do with how many hours of teacher training you have. In fact, I've worked with teachers who have over 1,000 hours of teacher training. And they go into their class and they're super nervous and they don't feel like they deserve to be there, and they're confused and they're unsure of even some of the technical stuff that we talked about before. But in their gut, they don't feel confident. So it's very little connection to the number of hours. And it's more connected to this other willingness, this having this growth mindset, instead of thinking of, let me ask you this. Think of how many things you might be doing right now simply out of a belief that you have to. I have to start them in child's pose. I have to use music. I have to change my sequence every week. I have to say, inhale, lift your right leg, bend your upper knee. I have to. Yoga teachers have a permission problem. They think that they need permission to do what they want to do. And when I talked to you at the beginning about where are you now and where you want to be, this person over here isn't looking for permission. This is the yoga teacher who's walking in the room and doing what they want to do. They're not going into the class and saying, okay, what do you guys want to do today? They're not driven by, oh, I have to do what they want. I have to do what they need. At the heart of that is an altruistic belief. And I'm not saying we go in and we're saying, do it this way or the highway. But we have to recognize that we're going into a room with people we don't know, and to go in there with this expectation and this mindset that we're simply there to do what they want and do what they need puts us at an extreme disadvantage when it comes to going in and feeling confident. And so a lot of the work I do in my program is around this idea of becoming a more empowered, confident yoga teacher. I almost prefer the word empowered more than confidence, because when you're empowered, you're taking your power back. Instead of giving it away to all these people you don't even know and hoping that they like your class and they'll get it right and they'll come back. And I saw a video on TikTok the other day, and this teacher was freaking out because people leave her class, and when they don't say, oh, I liked your class. And she was basically making the video from the point of view of, when you go and take a yoga class, do you tell the teacher you liked it? Because I'm feeling like I'm not getting positive feedback. We can't teach for feedback. We're not there to teach for feedback because we can't control what they think. So there's a lot more in this part, but know that this is part of building your confidence as a teacher, is really being willing to experiment with different things, 100% in service to you finding your confidence. So I want to just take a moment here and just pull this all together for you, because if you remember at the beginning, the whole point of you being here is you want to know how to build your confidence. And I talked at the beginning about where are you now and where do you want to be. And you learned through the past half an hour of this conversation that there are 4 components to that. And they were the cues, the sequence, the anatomy, and the mindset. Know that all of these things really hinge on this part, the anatomy. So if you use that blueprint to learn the anatomy, these other things fall into place. The cueing falls into place, the sequencing falls into place, and the mindset falls into place. It's not 100% of it, but it's a big part of it. And that's why when I created my program, the Yoga Anatomy Accelerator, it focuses on this part. Yes, it also touches on cueing and sequencing and mindset. It's predicated, though, the foundation of it is walking you through the 10 steps. I do that in 4 live trainings. And also you have access to key lessons in the video portal. And it only takes about a month because I usually map out the sessions over a month and there's a rolling schedule. So you could enroll today and you could hop into session 4, which happens to be happening tomorrow or Saturday. And then you could hop into session 1, 2, 3, and you'd be done because I do them in a rolling cycle. Or you could wait to start with session 1, which starts in June. So the Yoga Anatomy Accelerator, which I can send you the link to if you're interested, is basically a 4-week live training with the supplemental videos to give you this part, to literally walk you through the 10 steps. I have teachers that are enrolled right now. They're going through the 4-week program and they're giving me great feedback. The program I specifically made to be really easy to do in a short, focused period of time. That's why I call it an accelerator. I have a 90-day program, my Yoga Anatomy Blueprint program, and that's a $2,200 program. But this is not that. This is a condensed, accelerated version, and it's under $400. So it's $397. But if you enroll in this program today, you'll get $50 off. So if you're ready, teachers that do well in this program are highly motivated to make that shift from where they are now to where they want to be. So if that's you, you would be a perfect fit for this. And there's really no bad decision here. The bad decision is no decision and to keep things as they are. When you enroll in the program, you will get an immediate welcome email from me and I'll walk you through exactly how to get started. So it's easy to get going. It's not the kind of thing where you pull out your credit card and pay for the program and then you're just out in the internet void. I reach out to every single teacher who enrolls and then you're in the next live training. So just like this, we are working together. It would be so much easier for me to just send you off and watch videos and never talk to the teachers, but I know that's not how it works. If I want to get you the results that you want, we need to have live conversation. And that's why I have the four live trainings. So here's the bottom line as we're wrapping this up. If you want to enroll in the Yoga Anatomy Accelerator, number one, you can do it anytime. You'll just pay $397. But if you enroll today, just email me or send me a DM on Instagram and just say, I want the $50 coupon code. And I'll send you the coupon code and I'll send you the link to enroll. And you can get started today. So that's what I came to share with you today. And I want to open it up for any questions that you have. You can ask questions about the Yoga Anatomy Accelerator program. You can ask questions about anything we talked about today. So, don't be shy. If you have a question, just unmute yourself and just ask. Honestly, it's, kind of rare that we have an opportunity as yoga teachers to get together with other teachers. So definitely, use this as a chance to ask a question or ask a question in service to other teachers and just, hearing what they have to say.
Yeah, hi Karen. This is really super interesting. Just looking on your website and such. So the distinction, obviously, other than how much longer the longer class that you offer is it basically that you get into really more of the stuff we learn in teacher training as it relates to your 4 major points?
Yeah. So the $2,200 program, the Yoga Anatomy Blueprint, is one-on-one. So
Okay.
in that program, you're getting one-on-one coaching along with walking through the Yoga Anatomy Blueprint, which we went through today,
Right.
applying it to cueing and sequencing. Because that program is one-on-one, that's where you get a lot of the mindset work because
Gotcha.
you're on coaching calls with me one-on-one. That's where teachers tend to open up a little more, talk about what's not working in their classes, and that's where we start to get into some of the mindset stuff. The Yoga Anatomy Accelerator program, which is $397, today it's $50 off, is the focus is on the 10-step blueprint. And that includes cueing and sequencing and the steps of learning anatomy like I walked you through today. It's
Mhm.
just that it's in a group, so you're not getting one-on-one help, but I always include one-on-one coaching call, even with the accelerator, to just give people some extra support.
Okay. So at this I got certified probably 10 years ago, but I'm a kind of professional yoga student. So I just get certified, and I don't know that I ever want to teach a group class. I've had offers and I've turned them down. So I guess at this point I'm just saying, okay, do I want to maybe move myself into occasionally filling in for some of my friends at their studios, or maybe just developing a little one-on-one practice? And so this might be a good option for me. So at the end of the day, after completing this, do you think the person taking the class would be able to field some of those sticky questions that students sometimes throw at you about, oh, well, what's this doing and that doing, and how does the psoas intersect with the toe and all the other nonsense that you hear all the time?
Yeah, yeah. So I would say between the two programs, obviously the longer program goes into a lot more detail. So maybe a little bit more skill is built there.
Mhm.
Having said that though, in the accelerator program, you're going to learn the anatomy. And honestly, and this maybe be helpful for everybody, understanding anatomy, at least the way that I present it, is not necessarily knowing every single part of the body so that you can answer every single question. It's more about, because you couldn't possibly do that, right? None of us are physicians or physical therapists. We're not operating in a way where we are there in our professional scope of practice to know everything. However, what most yoga teachers are not trained to, with regard to what you're talking about, is an approach to answering questions that comes from having a good foundation of knowledge of anatomy. And that is absolutely something you will learn in either program. So that, that would definitely be something that checks the box there.
Okay, super. And how did you say, how do we contact you about the
Yeah.
code?
So you got this invite through my email?
Yes.
Yeah. So just email me and just say, hey, I want the coupon code. I'll
Okay,
send it to you with the
great.
link.
Super. And thank you so much for offering this.
Of
Fabulous.
course. Cool. Anything else? I thought I heard somebody else had something.
Uh, yes, hi. Thank you very much for this workshop. Very, very interesting and rich in useful information, and easy to understand. It's like amazing. Uh, so my question was, how long do we have access to all the because I suppose we have like videos,
Yeah.
and we have a limited time to access.
Forever, forever. When you enroll in either program, but we're primarily here talking about the shorter program,
Yes.
you always have access to the portal I've built it with lessons that just kind of get you started. There's some intro videos, and that way, whenever you enroll, you get started, even if the first live training isn't happening for a week or something. But you always have access to the portal, and the portal includes the replays of the trainings I've done. So right now I have a group in process,
Mhm.
and includes the replays. If you enroll and you miss one of the four, you can always watch the replay. And you will always have access to that. And honestly, you'll always have access to me. I have teachers that enroll in, I also have a membership and then the one-on-one. And I'm always here, to help people if they enroll in something and then they're out there teaching and they have some questions. So that's always a resource you will have as well. But in terms of the program, you'll always have access to.
All right. And every week, how many hours do you think it's necessary
Yeah.
to put?
So the really cool thing about it is I intentionally make the trainings just 1 hour. So it's a very condensed, that's why I call it the accelerator. It's really meant to accelerate your confidence by understanding the key aspects of anatomy in this very condensed, focused way.
1 hour per week?
It's
Sorry.
1 hour. So there's 4 trainings. Each one is an hour. And what I do is I host them every week on a rolling basis. So whenever you enroll, you can hop into the next one coming up. If it happens to be the 4th in the 4 for the group that's going, you'll just learn the 4th one, or you can wait until the next number 1 in the 4 starts. But honestly, it wouldn't even matter. You could hop into the 4th lesson and then start 1, 2, 3, 4. But the trainings themselves are just an hour long. So if you simply went to the 4 trainings, it's just 4 hours. And then in between, if you watch some of the supplemental lessons I have in the portal, it's probably, I don't know, maybe like a couple of hours. It's really what you make of it. I would say though, to get the most out of it, if possible, come to the 4 trainings live and in person rather than watch the replay, because there's so much interchange that we have when I pull out the skeleton and I'm talking about poses. That's how I find people get the most out of it. So minimum 4 hours, a little more if you're motivated to do a little bit more. I would say the maximum is maybe 7 or 8 hours.
All right, thank you very much. My only concern is because I teach in French. I live in Quebec, in Canada, and although I can understand English, and I would have maybe some work trying to translate everything.
Yeah, I've worked with some teachers who teach in another country. I have a lot of international teachers. Some of them teach in English and some of them teach in your case, French. So, it depends. Sometimes teachers learn anatomy in English and then,
Yeah.
right? So the fundamentals are sort of language agnostic. Your brain will translate it into the language of the cueing.
Yeah.
So know that learning it in English will still give you the foundation from which to draw when your brain is doing the translation into.
Yeah. Maybe it's not such a big deal. It's just yeah.
Yeah, I mean, keep in mind when we went through the blueprint, the cueing and sequencing, or even just the cueing is the language. All the other stuff is really the anatomy. And now, granted, you can learn anatomy in French. I speak French, but not well enough to teach it in French. But yeah, consider it. It's
I'll
still,
think about it.
still possible. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Of course. Anyone else? Okay. All right, good. All right, so if you didn't have a chance to ask a question, or you're too shy, or another reason you don't want to ask, I get it. We'll wrap this one up. If you have questions, you can send me an email, Karen@barebonesyoga.com. I think most of you are probably connected with me on Instagram. That's a great place to be connected. I do videos every day. I do lots of Instagram lives. I've got the podcast, Conversations for Yoga Teachers. So there's a lot of different free content ways that you can stay connected. The only thing I would say is don't stay in the free content space too long. There is no shortage of information out there, but the longer you stay in the free content space and hesitate investing in yourself to be the kind of teacher that you want to be, the longer it takes. So I know sometimes it's easy to be like, I'm feeling like I'm learning stuff by watching people's videos. Know that that's just all over the place. It's like a choose your own adventure approach. So I'd highly encourage you, if you are motivated, you cannot lose with this. This is an easy yes. I made it priced really easy for you to say yes to. So don't forget, today only you'll get $50 off. Just send me an email, Karen@barebonesyoga.com. Tell me you want to enroll, and I will send you the coupon code and the link to sign up. All right, friends. Well, good to see you. I'm glad you were here, and hope to see you on the next workshop. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you so much.
Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you so much.
Bye. Au revoir. Thanks so much for tuning in today. I hope you loved the episode. Before you go, I want to leave you with a little extra. Even though we haven't met, I know what it looks like when a yoga teacher is ready for a breakthrough, ready to become the kind of teacher who walks in the room with confidence, shares cues with clarity and purpose, teaches thoughtful sequences easily, and truly enjoys teaching without stress, anxiety, or second guessing. If that's the kind of yoga teacher you're ready to be, here is your next step. DM me the words podcast offer on my Instagram at Barebones Yoga, and I'll send you a special incentive you can use towards any of my programs, whether it's the Yoga Anatomy Accelerator, the Yoga Teacher Confidence Club monthly membership, or my one-to-one signature program, the Yoga Anatomy Blueprint Learning Program. I can't wait to hear from you.